on the clock? All right. Hello, my name is Tony Beitle, and I'm getting ready to celebrate my 103rd birthday. If people ask me what I'd be remembered for, it'd be a retired sheep shearer and a World War II veteran. I also am one of Sublimity's oldest residents, so far. All my life I have worked really hard, and I think that is one of the reasons I have been blessed with so many years here on Earth. I still live in my musty old farmhouse outside of Sublimity, and is clearly home to me and gives me much comfort. Can I practice what I'm going to say for my birthday celebration to you? I heard that the Statesman Journal will also be at the party to record my time in history, and I feel honored to tell my story. Well, let me start with how my family ended up on the farm out on Coon Hollow Road. My father, Alois Beitel, was born in Moravia, which was a part of Bohemia in Austria, in 1868. I came to know that my parents lived a few miles apart but didn't meet until later in life. But first, my father married Teresa and moved to Nebraska, where they had my half-sister Mary. 3 years later, Teresa died, and my grandmother and my aunt came out and lived on the farm to help with the chores and the cleaning and raising of Teresa. 5 years later, my father married Cecilia Schneebel, and they moved to Oregon, where I was born in Rosedale, just south of Salem. My grandmother, or Oma, lived with us, but didn't speak English or read or write, so we spoke German in the house and only spoke English outside. My father was a very hard worker and had owned his farm free and clear, which was quite impressive during that time period in history. I went to school until the 8th grade and worked on the farm after to help my family. During the school years, I enjoyed playing baseball, and I was a pitcher. I was told that I had a mean curveball. We even played baseball right here. This newer half of the cemetery was an open field that we played baseball in. So I guess that is true. Our family would make the trip to the Oregon coast every summer. We'd take the train from Kingston, just south of Staten, to Newport. One summer, I brought along a friend, and we convinced each other that we should swim out around a buoy. My mother got very nervous when we weren't seen for a while, and she had to call the Coast Guard, and when they went up into the tower, they saw us swimming around the buoy, and we were just fine. I always was a good swimmer, but I never went to high school because there wasn't one in Sublimity at the time, and the walk to Staten was too far. Pretty soon after, the Great Depression started, and I was thankful our family had a farm. We were lucky to have a roof over our heads, jobs, and plenty of food to eat for the 10 of us that lived there. On the farm, we had produce, milk, and meat. Our family had 250 sheep, pigs, and dairy cows. We sold the milk to the Mount Angel Creamery. I learned how to be a commercial sheep shearer, learning the Australian method. I even set a record for shearing a sheep in under 3 minutes, and was able to shear 170 sheep in a single day. Cars were just becoming popular, and my dad bought a Model T, but he could never get it started, so it sat in our shed all winter long, and when spring came around, we traded it in for a Maxwell. We later came to find out that the owner of the Maxwell car company was borrowing money from the company's pension fund, and this did not work out, and the Maxwell car company is no more. On October 16th, 1940, I registered for the draft when I was 31 years old. Back then, I was so fit and in great shape from working on the farm that I was 165 pounds and was pure muscle. I did basic training at Camp White, and then went to artillery school in Fort Still, Oklahoma. A highlight from my military career was They said I was the best artilleryman in the unit, which was the 242nd Field Artillery Battalion. A highlight from that was I was able to demonstrate my artillery accuracy to Eleanor Roosevelt when she came to visit the camp. I guess all my hunting for deer and elk paid off when I went into the military. I always wondered why my friends, Cocky Dozler, Lawrence Frank, and Father Allstock, always sighted their guns before the season, because they always shot their gun in the same place, and there was no need to practice that. Anyways, During combat, we lived in foxholes and we fought every day. And we were shot at every day as well, but luckily I was never injured. But we came very close. Bullets flew over my head, and one even went through my hair. I was the company translator since I spoke fluent German, and at one point, we even had beers with some Germans during an armistice. Later, those same guys threatened to take us prisoner. It was a confusing time for everyone. I can still remember watching my company cross the Rhine River into Germany. The town of Mannheim had been bombed recently, and it was incredibly a vicious sight to see. As I looked around, I can still remember the bodies pushed up in the streets like cords of wood piled 6 feet deep. I fought in the Battle of the Bulge, which lasted 6 weeks. This was basically Hitler's last chance for victory against the Western Front. The weather was terrible, but on Christmas Eve it cleared up, and the Allied air forces were able to help us to victory. My unit captured Birch's Garden and Hitler's vacation home, Eagle's Nest. I was able to take a few souvenirs back from there to the States, and I gave them to St. Boniface Archives now. You can see them over there if you find that interests you. One of the times during a long standoff, my company ran out of fuel, and I was the truck driver. I was sent to the Paris airport, and the journey was a long 25 hours and very dangerous. For 3 days, I did not get a wink of sleep. As soon as I got back from my second trip, I fell asleep against the steering wheel. I tried to go hide, but my commanding officer said I had to go back again, since I was the only one he trusted to drive at night, and I had excellent night vision. I, like many who saw the worst of war, have awful memories and have no use for it. When I came back home, like many young men after war, I was looking for a wife. I had met a young woman in Salem that I had enjoyed drinking beer with, and I was going back to meet her one day when all of a sudden I had felt a strange pull on my wrist. It was so strong that I turned around the car and drove and pulled into a house's driveway. I went up to the door and I knocked, and I met a woman, and she invited me in, and we sat down and we had food, and we enjoyed our conversation so much that we started dating, and soon after we were married in Eureka, California. This woman was Mildred, and I came to later find out that she had been praying all day to meet a husband. The Lord works in mysterious ways, and shortly after we were blessed with Becky, our only daughter, to complete our family. We did have several tragedies that occurred in our family. In 1957, my father died, and a year later, my mother died as well. The old farmhouse burned down shortly after, which was where my sister-in-law died as well. I still remember pouring rocks, taking wheelbarrow loads of rocks over and over to fill in the foundation where the house was. But luckily, my old farmhouse just down the way survived. Mildred was a diligent historian and loved to put together handmade books and photo albums about the Beitle family history. She worked at the St. Boniface Archives and Museum. Over time, I learned to cook and take care of the house as she developed Alzheimer's, and she shortly passed in 2000, or after we'd been married for 50 years together. I'm still here on the farm, and sometimes I fish, but most of my friends are gone. I do have some help with the chores and cooking, and my nephew John comes and mows the lawn for me since he lives only one house away. Now it's just the simple life, sitting in front of the house, watching the deer eat my blueberries and watching traffic drive by. I'm slowing down a little, and I have to use a walker because of my hip surgery. I still drive a little at 103, but I don't go to Salem anymore, just around the Santiam Canyon area. As I wrap up my story, looking at this church in front of me, I remember all the good times we had as a church. Being a part of a church family is very important. Not only do all the members look out after each other, but we take care of each other. We might not have been seen every Sunday, but Mildred and I were there, and everyone knew we were, because Mildred would most often let out one of her recognizably loud sneezes, which she would blame on perfume allergies. After Mildred passed, I stopped going to church as much, and I mostly burned brush piles on Sunday. I told people who asked me why I didn't go to Mass anymore that my prayers went up to heaven with the smoke. I was an avid reader of the Bible. I read both the Roman Catholic and St. James Version cover to cover. The words in the Bible provide me much comfort during hard times, and remembering Scripture helped me share my faith with others. Well, thank you for letting me practice my little speech. I hope you enjoyed learning about my life and my family. Pax vos vicam, which is Catholic Latin phrase meaning peace be with you.
You had 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
So when you have